What happens when one of Britain's most beloved comedy legends walks into a daytime talk show, expecting warmth, and gets ambushed instead? In just 46 seconds of one shocking exchange, Loose Women host Denise Welch went from confident presenter to the most criticized woman on British television. This is the story of how Rowan Atkinson, the man behind Mr. Bean and Blackadder, stood his ground and walked out. That morning, the energy in the studio was electric. The audience buzzed with excitement. Rowan Atkinson was there to promote his new film, a rare appearance from a man famous for letting his characters do most of the talking. He walked on set with that familiar shy smile. The crowd erupted. Everyone loved him. He sat down, straightened his jacket, and nodded politely as the applause faded. At the head of the panel, Denise Welch leaned forward with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Well, well, well," she said smoothly. "Look who finally decided to grace us with his presence. Rowan Atkinson, everyone." The audience clapped again, but the air had shifted. Rowan smiled faintly. "Thank you for having me," he said softly. Denise waved her hand as if brushing the sentiment away. "Oh, we're thrilled. Really. I mean, it's not every day we get someone who peaked in the 90s, is it?" The room froze. The laughter died before it could start. One of the panelists shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Rowan's smile faded, but his tone stayed calm. "I'm still working, actually. I have a new film coming out." Yes, we'll get to that," Denise cut in, flipping her hair. "But first, Mr. Bean, come on. A grown man pulling faces and grunting? Don't you think that's a bit beneath someone with your education?" A ripple of tension swept through the audience. This wasn't playful teasing. This was a takedown. Rowan blinked once, steady. "Mr. Bean brings joy to millions of people," he said evenly. "Physical comedy is an art form. Chaplin, Keaton. Oh!" Denise laughed sharply. "So now you're comparing yourself to Charlie Chaplin." One of the other panelists tried to interject. "Denise, I think what Rowan means—" "I'm talking," Denise snapped. She turned back to him like a cat cornering its prey. "You've been riding the coattails of one character for 30 years. One that doesn't even talk. My 6-year-old could do that." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Rowan sat a little straighter, his jaw tightening. "That's quite disrespectful," he said quietly. "I've worked very hard throughout my career, not just on Mr. Bean, but on many projects that require thought, skill, and discipline." "Disrespectful?" Denise shot back. "You want to talk about disrespect? Making people pay good money to watch you pull faces for 90 minutes? That's disrespectful." The panelists looked uneasy. One whispered, "Maybe we should move on to the film." But Denise wasn't done. "I'm just being honest," she said, her tone sharpening. "Isn't that what this show's about? Honesty? Honestly, Rowan, I've never found Mr. Bean funny. Not once. And I'm not alone. Plenty of people think it's overrated garbage." The word hung in the air. Garbage. Rowan's expression hardened. The polite mask cracked just slightly. His eyes went cold. "I see," he said quietly. "So you invited me here to insult my life's work." "I invited you to have a conversation," Denise snapped. "If you can't handle criticism, maybe you should go back to pulling funny faces in the mirror." That was it. Rowan stood. The audience gasped. He calmly unclipped his microphone, set it on the couch, and looked directly at her. "I don't need to sit here and be insulted by someone who clearly has no respect for the craft of comedy," he said, his tone controlled but cutting. "You may think you're being clever, but you're simply being rude." Denise's face flushed. "Sit down," she barked. "You can't just walk off my show." "Your show?" Rowan raised an eyebrow. "I was under the impression this was a panel, not the Denise Welch Hour. And yes, I absolutely can walk off. Watch me." He turned and began to walk toward the exit. "You're being unprofessional," Denise shouted after him. "Do you know how many people would kill to be on this show?" Rowan paused at the edge of the stage and looked back. "Then perhaps he said softly. "You should treat them with the respect they deserve, instead of using them as props for your own amusement." "I was just having a laugh," Denise insisted. "Can't you take a joke?" "You're a comedian." Rowan met her gaze unflinching. "A joke requires wit," he said. "What you were doing was cruel. There's a difference." He turned and walked out as the studio fell completely silent. The cameras kept rolling, but nobody moved. That silence, that walkout, would echo across British television for weeks to come. This had never happened before. Guests didn't walk off loose women. Not like this. If you walk out that door, you're never coming back on this show. Denise shouted after him. Rowan paused at the edge of the stage. He turned just enough for his voice to carry. "I assure you," he said evenly, "that's not the threat you think it is." And with that, he walked off. The audience didn't know whether to clap or sit in stunned silence. For a moment, they did both. A ripple of confusion turning into scattered applause, and then a full standing ovation as Rowan disappeared behind the curtain. Denise stood frozen, her mouth half open, eyes darting between the cameras and her fellow panelists. Her face flushed crimson. "Well?" She tried to laugh, her voice trembling. "Looks like someone can't handle a bit of banter." But the audience wasn't buying it. The energy in the room had shifted completely. Faces that moments ago had been smiling were now stony and silent. A producer rushed onto the stage, whispering urgently in her ear. Denise nodded stiffly and sank back into her seat. The panel looked deeply uncomfortable. "We're going to take a quick break," Denise announced, forcing a grin that didn't reach her eyes. "Don't go anywhere." Backstage, the situation was unraveling fast. Rowan was in his dressing room, quietly gathering his things when a frantic knock came at the door. "Mr. Atkinson, please. Can we talk about this?" a producer pleaded. Rowan opened the door, his coat already on. His voice was calm but final. "There's nothing to talk about. I came here in good faith to discuss my work, and instead I was subjected to personal attacks. I won't stand for it. Denise can be direct," the producer stammered. "She didn't mean... She meant every word," Rowan interrupted. "And that's fine. She's entitled to her opinion. But I'm also entitled not to sit there and be her verbal punching bag for the sake of entertainment. Please," the producer begged. "Just come back out for a minute. We'll change the tone. Talk about the film. She'll apologize." Rowan shook his head gently. "No, the damage is done. I'm leaving." When the cameras came back from the break, Denise was visibly irritated. Her tone was brittle. "Well," she said with a tight smile, "as you can see, Rowan Atkinson has decided he's too important to finish the show with us. Apparently he can dish it out in his comedy, but can't take it when someone has an opinion about his work." The studio was silent, completely silent. One of the panelists finally spoke up. "To be fair, Denise, you were quite harsh." Denise whipped around. "Harsh? I was being honest. That's what loose women is. Honesty." "There's a difference between honesty and cruelty," the panelist said quietly. "Oh, not you two," Denise snapped. "I can't believe everyone's taking his side. He's the one who walked off. He's the one who couldn't handle a simple conversation." But the audience had heard enough. From the back of the studio, a voice shouted, "You were horrible to him!" Denise's eyes widened. "Excuse me?" Another voice joined in. "You should apologize." Then another. "That was so rude." And another. "Leave him alone." Denise looked genuinely stunned. This was her show, her audience. But the crowd had turned on her. "I think we should move on," one of the panelists said carefully. Let's talk about the next topic." But Denise couldn't let it go. "No," she said sharply. "I want to address this. Rowan Atkinson walked off because he couldn't handle criticism. That's the truth. And if people want to defend him, fine. But I stand by what I said." The audience groaned. A single boo echoed from the front row, then another. Denise's face turned from red to purple. Did someone just boo me on my own show? It's not just your show. One of the panelists muttered under her breath. What did you say? Denise snapped. Nothing, came the quick reply. Let's just move on. But the atmosphere was poisoned. The rest of the show collapsed into awkward silences and forced laughter. Every topic fell flat. The audience had mentally checked out, still replaying the moment Rowan walked out with quiet dignity. Backstage, as Rowan prepared to leave the building, a young crew member caught up with him. Mr. Atkinson, she said softly, I just wanted to say, I'm really sorry about what happened in there. You didn't deserve that. Rowan smiled, a genuine, gentle smile. Thank you. That's very kind of you. For what it's worth, she added, everyone back here's on your side. What Denise did was out of line. I appreciate that, Rowan said. I don't enjoy confrontation, but there comes a point where you have to stand up for yourself. You absolutely did the right thing, she said. Everyone knows it. Rowan nodded, adjusting his coat. Then that's enough for me. He stepped out into the crisp London air. A few fans waiting outside recognized him immediately. Mr. Atkinson, are you okay? We heard what happened, one called out. Rowan gave a small, knowing smile. I'm fine, he said quietly. Truly, and for the first time that morning he actually was. Thank you for your concern, Rowan said gently, his voice calm despite everything. What she said to you was disgusting, one fan said angrily. You're a legend. She had no right. Rowan gave a small, almost sorrowful smile. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, he replied. I just chose not to sit there while mine was being attacked. The fans clapped softly in agreement. One asked for a photo, and Rowan obliged without hesitation, because that was who he was. Even after being humiliated on national television, he still made time for the people who truly appreciated his work. Back in the studio, chaos erupted the second the cameras stopped rolling. What were you thinking? One producer demanded, storming onto the set. You just chased off one of the biggest names we've ever had on this show. He couldn't take a joke, Denise said defensively, though her voice lacked its usual fire. That wasn't a joke, the producer snapped. That was bullying. Live on television. The other panelists avoided eye contact as they gathered their belongings. Nobody wanted to be there. The energy had curdled. One by one, they slipped away, leaving Denise standing alone amid the dismantled set. As the crew began packing up equipment, a camera operator walked past and muttered, That was painful to watch. Denise's head snapped up. What did you just say? The camera operator stopped, turned and met her gaze. I said it was painful to watch. You went after that man for no reason. I was doing my job, Denise said weakly. No, the operator replied flatly. Your job is to interview guests, not attack them. Rowan Atkinson's brought joy to millions of people, and you treated him like garbage. That's not entertainment. That's cruelty. He turned and walked away, leaving Denise standing under the dimming studio lights. One by one, the lights went out. The audience was gone. The panelists were gone. Even the producers had retreated to their offices to deal with the PR disaster. For the first time, Denise seemed to realize what she'd done. But it was far too late. Within hours, the internet was on fire. Clips of the confrontation spread like wildfire across every platform imaginable. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Hashtags exploded. Rowan deserved. Better done it out. Fire Denise Welch. Loose Women. Meltdown. People who had never even watched Loose Women were suddenly watching the clip. Outraged, appalled, united in defense of Rowan Atkinson. Comments flooded in by the thousands. Denise Welch should be ashamed of herself. Rowan handled that with such grace. This is why nobody takes loose women seriously. Imagine being so insecure you try to humiliate a comedy. Legend. The backlash was immediate. And brutal. Major news outlets picked up the story. Entertainment sites ran headlines dissecting every frame of the exchange. Fellow comedians came forward to defend Rowan. One famous comic tweeted, "Rowan Atkinson is one of the greatest physical comedians of our generation. What happened on Loose Women was disgraceful." Another wrote, "There's a difference between asking tough questions and being mean-spirited. Denise Welch crossed that line today. And it wasn't just celebrities. Teachers, nurses, factory workers, retirees. Everyone had an opinion, and almost all of them sided with Rowan." Inside the ITV offices, Loose Women's producers called an emergency meeting. The mood was grim. The show's reputation was in freefall. Sponsors were calling. The network was demanding answers. Before the end of the day, a carefully worded statement was released. "We regret the way today's interview unfolded. Loose Women prides itself on honest conversation, but we acknowledge that today's exchange crossed a line. We have reached out to Mr. Atkinson to apologize. But it wasn't enough. People wanted more than regret. They wanted consequences." Denise, meanwhile, had gone completely silent on social media. Her usual flood of selfies, opinions, and video clips had stopped overnight. She was hiding, and everyone knew it. One of her co-panelists, who had quietly tried to defend Rowan during the show, posted a subtle but pointed message. "Today was difficult. I believe in open conversation, but I also believe in respect. Everyone deserves dignity, especially our guests." It was diplomatic, but the meaning was obvious. She was distancing herself from Denise. By the next morning, the rumors were everywhere. Would Denise be suspended? Fired? Forced to apologize? The Loose Women's social media pages were being flooded with comments. "Get rid of her. She ruins every episode. She's toxic." The producers were trapped between loyalty and damage control. Denise had been a part of the show for years. But the public anger was unlike anything they'd seen before. Meanwhile, Rowan's team released a short, understated statement. "Mr. Atkinson appreciates the overwhelming support he has received. He stands by his decision to leave the interview. He believes all professionals deserve to be treated with respect, regardless of the forum. It was measured, calm, elegant." Everything Denise's behavior, and her silence, was not. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. Rowan had taken the high road. He hadn't lashed out. He hadn't mocked anyone. He had simply stood his ground and walked away with dignity. Denise, on the other hand, was unraveling. According to people close to her, she was devastated by the backlash. She hadn't expected it. Not the headlines, not the outrage, not the isolation. She thought it would all blow over. But it didn't. And as the days passed, one thing became painfully clear. Rowan Atkinson had walked out of that studio with his integrity intact, and Denise Welch had just ended her own credibility in front of the entire country. She had thought the whole thing would blow over, that people would roll their eyes and move on as they so often did after talk show dramas. But she had underestimated how deeply the moment had struck a chord. To her it had been just another day on Loose Women. A bit of provocation, a few laughs, a heated exchange to get people talking. But to everyone watching, it had been something very different. Because there's a difference between speaking your mind and being cruel. The public understood that, even if Denise didn't. 3 days passed. 3 days of silence, headlines, hashtags, and mounting pressure. And then finally, Denise broke. She posted a statement. "I want to address what happened on Monday's show. Upon reflection, I realized that my comments to Rowan Atkinson were out of line. I was trying to create engaging television, but I went too far. I never intended to hurt or disrespect him. I have the utmost respect for his work and his contributions to comedy. I sincerely apologize to Rowan and to everyone who was upset by what they saw. It was the apology everyone had been waiting for. But it landed wrong. The phrase, trying to create engaging television, felt like an excuse, not accountability. The comments came fast, furious and unforgiving. Too little, too late. You're only apologizing because of the backlash. You showed your true colors. Rowan handled it with class. You should take notes. Some accepted the apology. Most didn't. The damage was done. When the next episode of Loose Women aired, the ratings spiked. Not because people missed the show, but because they wanted to see what Denise would say. She offered a brief, stiff apology at the top of the broadcast. The room felt heavy. The laughter that usually flowed so easily sounded forced. By the following week, ratings plunged. Sponsors began to pull out quietly, one contract at a time. The energy that once defined the show had vanished. Inside ITV, the decision was made. Denise Welch would not be fired, but she would be taking an extended break. It was worded carefully. A mutual decision to allow her time to focus on other projects. But everyone knew the truth. It was a suspension, a consequence. Reactions were mixed. Some thought it wasn't enough, others thought it was too much. But the consensus was clear. Denise had done this to herself. And Rowan? He said nothing. No interviews. No social media statements beyond a short, measured note from his representatives. Mr. Atkinson appreciates the support he has received. He stands by his decision to leave the interview. He believes all professionals should be treated with respect, regardless of the forum. It was calm, controlled, classy, exactly as he had been in that moment on stage. That's the difference between a professional and someone who merely thinks they are one. The other Loose Women panelists tried to carry on. Guest hosts were brought in, jokes made, smiles forced. But the air never felt quite the same. The shadow of that day lingered. Because in television, as in life, respect matters. Guests expect to be challenged, yes, but they also expect to be treated with dignity. Rowan Atkinson had reminded everyone of that truth. He'd reminded them that no amount of good television is worth the cost of cruelty. When he stood up and walked off that stage, he did more than defend himself. He set a standard. He showed that you can be honest without being unkind. That dignity isn't weakness. That silence can be stronger than shouting. Denise Welch learned that the hard way. You can have all the bravado in the world, all the confidence, charisma, and camera time. But if you forget to treat people like people, it will catch up with you. And it did. The incident became a lesson in media ethics, a case study played in classrooms and workshops under one simple heading: how to lose the room. Because in the end, it wasn't just about Rowan Atkinson walking out. It was about what he stood for when he did. He didn't plan to make a statement that morning. He didn't plan to start a conversation about dignity on live television. He just wanted to talk about his work. But when the moment came, he chose integrity. And in doing so, he spoke for every artist, actor, and guest who's ever been talked over, mocked, or disrespected on air. He showed them, and the world, that it's okay to walk away. It's okay to say, I don't deserve this. It's okay to demand respect. And the world listened.